Hi, Francis. Are you able to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, of course. My name is Frances Onyina. I am a trainee solicitor at Colcan Solicitors. We're an employment boutique firm.
Amazing. So, before we get into the question segment of our event, I wanted to give you guys and share with you a quick breakdown of what it is that it entails to become a trainee solicitor in the UK. Bear with me while I get. Can everyone see the screen? Bear with me a moment. So, what is a training contract? So this is what the SRA says. It's a period of recognised training is often known as a training contract, gives individuals supervised experience in legal practice. This is the final stage of the process of qualification. As a solicitor, where they will refine and develop their professional skills, they will need to practice. This is a breakdown of what becoming a trainee entails. The duration. So a training contract typically lasts for 2 years. During the structure of a training contract, during the training contract, the trainee solicitor will work in various departments, often referred to as seats within the law firm. Each seat usually lasts 6 months. Supervision. Trainees are supervised by qualified solicitors who provide guidance, feedback, and support. Usually, the person that supervises is usually referred to as a training principal. Work experience. Trainees gain practical experience in different areas of law, such as corporate litigation, property, or family law. This helps them develop a broad skill set and identify areas of specialization. Professional skills course, often referred to as PSC. Trainees must complete the PSC, which includes additional training in areas like advocacy, client care, and financial and business skills. Assessment. Throughout the contract, trainees are assessed on their performance, competence, and professional conduct. Qualification. Upon successful completion of the training contract and the PSC, trainees can apply to be admitted as solicitors. Training contracts are highly competitive, and obtaining one is a significant step towards a career as a solicitor in the UK. Each year, around 25,000 to 30,000 individuals apply for training contracts. Given that approximately 5,000 to 6,000 training contracts are available annually, the acceptance rate is quite low. So with that being said, let's dive straight into the questions. What inspired you to become a lawyer? I will direct this question at Stephen first.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. So what inspired me to be a lawyer? It's a good question. I think a few things. I think my mom's a lawyer. We studied at the same time, actually. She decided to go back to school at the age of 52 or something. And so we were we were kind of first year university together. And I think, I mean, a combination of factors. I think it was a I wouldn't say I was one of those people that, I wouldn't say I was one of those people that necessarily had a very specific cause that they wanted to address in society. I studied law because I liked the subjects that I did in high school that kind of made sense with the law degree, and so that's kind of how I ended up doing that. But I think once I actually started studying law, and once I actually got into the space, I think a few of the things that really stood out to me was the opportunity that presents itself in the profession, in terms of not just jobs, but also the the ability to work on very interesting matters, and the ability to work with really intelligent people. Some of the most intelligent people I've ever met have been in my 2 years as a trainee. And so I think that, I mean, things like that. And I mean, obviously, there is there is a lot of prestige that comes with the profession. Yeah, so I mean, being from an African household, I'm Zimbabwean. I grew up in Zimbabwe, and I think being from an African household, that definitely goes a long way with most African parents. So, I mean, yeah, it was that, and I think now in retrospect, I'm not necessarily sure I would have been suited to anything else. So I think that's basically why, that's kind of what inspired me.
Awesome. I can definitely attest to the African parents. It's very valued within our community, a law degree. So can definitely attest to that. We'll pass the question on to Fuad.
Yeah, hi. What inspired me to become a lawyer? Um, Growing up, I was one of those kids that wanted to be every profession under the sun. There was a point I wanted to be an astronaut, I wanted to be a doctor, footballer. I went through the whole list. But I'd say what had a huge impact on me once to become a lawyer was the fact that my parents were both lawyers. I would see them dress up for courts and, in their attire and in their regalia, and I was just inspired by them. And, when they would come back from work, they would discuss the matters, they would seek each other's opinion and advice on things, and that was really interesting for me to watch. Another factor I'd say was I went on a school excursion trip in primary school to the Lagos State High Court, and it was quite an interesting experience. I really enjoyed watching the process and how everything played out, and the judge himself was kind enough to answer our questions and explain how everything works. So those are the two major influences I would say that come to my mind that inspired me to want to become a lawyer. My parents and the excursion trip I took in primary school many years ago.
Awesome. Thanks, Fuad. Can I pass the question on to Francis, please?
Yes, of course. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I have a similar experience as well. I always say I used to always say that I was never pressured by my parents to become a lawyer, but somehow I wanted to become a lawyer. I didn't know why. So I've been feeling they were whispering in my ear as I was growing up. So I think for me as well, I think in particularly, hopefully background noise is not too loud. I was really influenced by the Stephen Lawrence case in the UK, and how there was a clear failure to investigate the concerns of a Black man and a Black person. And I've always been involved in social justice, and I believe in meaningful representation. And I kind of saw law as a form of problem solving, and being and wanting to effect some kind of change or justice in someone's life. And I wanted to be the good guys of law. So that's kind of what for me inspired me to become a lawyer. My parents have quite professional jobs, but I think because my dad's a bus driver, he also, he said he knew many lawyers in his time. And so he was like, why don't you become a lawyer? I said, the plan was already there, but I think overall it was just effecting change and believing in justice. That's more so why I wanted to become a lawyer personally.
Brilliant. Thank you, Francis. I'm sensing a real theme here of parents' influence. So that's fantastic. No. Finally, Amaka, can I please have your reasons as to what inspired you to become a lawyer?
Yes, of course. I grew up with very typical African parents, and you're either a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer. And so because I'll get involved in school debates, public speaking, they advised me that since I'm very expressive, I should consider going down the law route. And so I went into uni, I did medical law, commercial law, employment, the whole variety. But I think the key turning point was when a close friend of mine was laid off following a merger. And so I just began to investigate what happens to employees when mergers happen, what do lawyers do, how can lawyers help? So I think that was a key turning point in deciding to be a lawyer and also in deciding to be a commercial lawyer.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys, for that. My second question is, how did you get your training contract? This is the big question that a lot of people are very keen to know. As mentioned, it's highly competitive, and you four have managed to successfully do it. How did you do it? I'll start with Amaka first, please.
Okay. So I studied law at the University of Bristol, and we would have career fairs, career dinners, commercial awareness programs, and I would attend these events and speak to people, get application tips, etc. And so within first year, second year, I did some internships, but I didn't do a vacation scheme. And so by third year, I started applying for direct training contracts. The white and case process involves putting in your written application, and then you get invited to do a video interview. After that, you have your telephone interview with a member of graduate recruitment. And this just goes over competency questions, motivation, commercial awareness. And following that, you then do an assessment center that involves a group exercise, a written exercise, and also an interview with an associate and a member of the graduate recruitment team. Following that, you then have a partner interview where you have a presentation on some pre-decided commercial questions of interest to the firm. And they also ask you some competency, motivation, and commercial awareness questions. So that was pretty much my journey to becoming a journey to getting a training contract.
That sounds like quite a long process. How did you, I'm really keen to know, like, how did you find it? Did you find it really challenging? What helped you get through? What helped you stay motivated?
So luckily for me, I ran into a friend that had done a vacation scheme, and she kind of put me through the process, what to expect, how to prepare. And I also think that the whole application process was designed in a way that it was yours to gain or lose. So it didn't feel like I was competing against how many other people that had applied. It was very much showing up, showing my competency and presenting my best self. I don't think it was, I mean, looking back now and talking about all the various stages to getting the TC, it looks long, but I found it to be quite a pleasant process nonetheless.
Awesome. Thank you, Amaka. Next, I pass the question on to Stephen, please.
Yeah, sure. So I had a somewhat atypical process because I think most people on the call and probably on the panel will have gone to university in the UK, which I didn't. So I did my undergrad at the University of Johannesburg in South Africa. So I didn't necessarily have the what sounds like a nightmarish experience of having to apply to multiple firms and do multiple kind of training contract applications. Linklaters was at the time, I think, the only firm that kind of had this pathway for African students. So what they would do was they were, well, at the time it was just South Africa, but now it's I think they've expanded to South Africa and Nigeria. So what they would do was every year they would offer a vacation scheme, a training contract, a vacation scheme application, and then a training contract application to 4 or 5 students in African universities, in South African universities at the time. And so quite similarly, they would go on like a roadshow and kind of make a presentation at various universities. Someone told me about it, I applied, and then it was I just ended up going on a vacation scheme at the end of 2019. And at the end of the vacation scheme, we had a training contract interview, and that's how I kind of got my training contract. So yeah, but I mean, it's the same process that Amaka is describing in terms of you do have a written application, you do have a Watson-Glaser test at the time. I'm not sure if it's changed, but there's a bunch of tests that you go through to get on the vacation scheme. And then you obviously then have at the time it was an in-person interview with one of the partners who they actually flew out to South Africa to interview a select number of students, and then they kind of narrowed it down. So I think in terms of actually, but what I will say and what I do say to everyone, regardless of how you get on, how where you're applying from, is, I mean, commercial awareness is just key. I think that's the big thing that a lot of the firms seem to hop on about. And once you actually find yourself in a position where, fortunately, if you do have a training contract, you'll see pretty quickly how that is kind of that kind of fits into everything that you do. So, I mean, if I can give any word of advice, it's just to, I mean, read as much as possible in terms of whatever resources you can get your hands on. There's a lot of good resources out there on markets and on finance and economics and all these things. But so that's how I kind of, that was kind of my slightly more, less typical route to a training contract.
No, that's fantastic. We've actually got one of our members who's asking the question, what is the scheme called? And do you know if it's still running?
Yes, yeah. So there is. It's called the African Clerkship. So African, African, and then Clerkship, CLERKSHIP, and it runs every year. I think every year they take anywhere between 2 and 5 individuals who are studying or have gotten an LLB degree at a South African university or a Nigerian university. Last I checked, it was just South Africa and Nigeria, but I can look into whether they've expanded that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Stephen. And I'll pass the question on to Fuad, please.
Yes. So let me give a bit of background, because my background is a bit different as well. So obviously I was born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria. Then I completed my undergraduate degree at the University of Hertfordshire in the UK. Then I went back to Nigeria to complete Nigerian law school. So I actually practiced in Nigeria for a couple of years. It was when I came to do my master's at the at University College London that I started looking for opportunities here, started looking for training contracts, different legal opportunities in the UK. Then after completing my LPC, I started making applications. So me personally, I made a direct application to Home Logos. I didn't do a vacation scheme or an internship. So I made a direct application to the firm. So the application process is quite similar to what Steven and Amaka said. So there was a written application. I was then invited to take the Watson-Glaser test. Before I continue, I would just like to emphasize that if you are asked to write the Watson-Glaser test, try and practice as much as you can, because it does matter. They really do look at your scores and you know, so it really is an important thing to consider when you're making training contract applications. So do not take it for granted. So yeah, as I was saying, I made a direct application to the firm. So in the application, I was asked to fill in my background, give information about myself. They asked me for results from undergrad, from I believe, I'm not sure, secondary school. And so they asked me a couple of other motivational questions as well. Then I was invited to an assessment center. During the assessment center, there were 2 rounds to it. So the first round was a partner interview. So I had an interview with a partner, and we're giving a case study beforehand. So we're given some time to analyze the case study and basically give an analysis and expert. So I was expected to explain the case study and analyze it from my perspective, from my point of view. This is where commercial awareness really does come in handy, knowing how things operate, knowing what the market is saying. So for example, during my partner interview, I gave the example of the Bank of England interest rates in relation to one of the questions that we asked. So the Bank of England had just decided to not increase the interest rates. So I was able to relate it to the case study at hand. So also the partner wanted to know about my background. He asked me motivational questions, why I wanted to work at the firm, why I was keen on moving from Lagos to the UK, and why I didn't want to just continue practicing in Lagos. So yeah, there were parts of the interview that felt like an interview, and there were parts that felt more like a conversation. So after that, I had a situational judgments interview. So in this interview, I was given situations that trainees typically face in their day-to-day lives, and I was asked to explain how to handle those situations. So basically, I gave my opinion on what I would do in certain situations. And yeah, I think that was the application process in a nutshell.
Thank you, Fuad. Can I just ask you, how did you kind of keep abreast with your commercial awareness? Do you have any tips and tricks for people that that are watching? Are there any newspapers that you read? Were there any kind of websites that you kind of focused in on? Yeah, please do let us know.
I would say one tip I have is just to keep to be informed on current affairs. Just something as simple as listening to the news or having breaking news alerts on your phone, because and again, I also subscribe to the Financial Times. I find the Financial Times quite useful. So if anybody is currently at school or at uni and their university offers subscriptions to Financial Times, I would really advise you to take them up on that, because and it doesn't mean that you have to read every single news story. Just having a quick scan through, something that is interesting to you or something that sticks out to you goes a long way. Also, I subscribe to practical law alerts. So it allows you to subscribe to certain industries and certain practice areas that of interest to you. And that's another thing that I found particularly helpful. But I can't overemphasize the points of just, paying attention to what's going on around you, listening to the news. That really does go a long way.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ford. I have to re-emphasize what you say. Commercial awareness is so important. This was really drummed into us whilst doing the LPC. So yeah, do heed that advice. And finally, Francis, how did you get your training contract?
Loads. I think out of everyone in the panel, my route is a bit different, especially because I am working in a boutique law firm. I think I'll first of all start that I did not study a straightforward law degree at university. I took then the non-law route. So I studied modern history and politics at the University of Essex, and then I did 1 year as a sabbatical officer for like a student union. So that was my first kind of work experience. I was advocating for, at that time, students rather than clients moving forward. But, it's good. It was good at work experience. And I've had clients that have generated from that, which is kind of interesting. So following that, I did, the GDL. I did it as a master so that I could get the funding in place. Because, of course, this profession is quite, because of its prestige, it's quite elite in that there's a lot of money to go into paying these fees unless you secure a training contract that pays for them. And I don't know if anyone's touched on this, but when I did my LPC, I didn't have the funding in place. I didn't have a training contract at the time. So I applied for the Law Society Diversity Access Scheme, so the DAS scheme. And it's a scheme that I always advocate for because I never knew about it when I was a student. I just stumbled across it, and many people are eligible. And it's just, it's a scheme that changed my life. So essentially the Law Society funded my whole LPC. I didn't pay a penny. I didn't pay a penny at all. And it was great. And we recently celebrated 20 years of the scheme. So I don't know if the applications are still open, but always look. And it was a difficult application scholarship to get. Of course, they don't just give it to you. I had to do, I think, 3 assessments to get onto it and then a panel interview. But when I was successful, and my mum was overjoyed essentially because we were looking at different financial funding options. So I essentially I got my training contract through working at the firm. So I was a paralegal at the firm for 1 year essentially, and I broke my back. I grinded essentially. I basically tried to show them that I am a value and I am an asset to the firm because they didn't need to take a trainee at the time, but it's something that I put forward in my interview that I am looking to train, and particularly as I have a special interest in employment law, and this is a specialist employment law firm. I thought this was, given the best opportunity I could get to become a specialist employment solicitor. So it was basically showing the passion I had for the firm, and also, breaking my back to do extra things just so that I could bring, I guess, more value and more revenue to the firm as well. So it's a very different journey. So in terms of the interview process, they put it out that they are looking for a trainee, and I applied. I expressed my interest. They knew my interest, so I expressed my interest, and I had to do a presentation. And what was difficult was because, of course, they knew my academics and they knew my abilities, I had to basically show them what my plan was. Like, basically a business plan for the firm because it's a very new firm. And I had to basically pitch to these 2 individuals who are the owners of the firm. These are leading individuals in the industry, and we've done excellent at your loan. Like, we're already ranked very high amongst other firms in the Legal 500 and Chambers of Partners. So I had to show what can Francis do and what is the plan for the firm. So I had to do a 5-year business plan. I had to also basically express what a successful solicitor at this firm looked like. And I went above and beyond. The presentation was nice. I used the firm colors, all of these things, and to show that I had been paying attention as a paralegal, not just doing the admin, not just doing the ad hoc legal research, but showing that I'd paid attention and I was involved in every single aspect of the firm. By the launch party, I was there doing the name tags. I was involved, and I wanted them to see me as, this is someone we want to work with in the future. This is someone that they want to kind of, I guess, mold into their own image and kind of of course, become the first official qualified solicitor. So it's a bit different. I think my tip for everyone is don't, value small beginnings. Every opportunity that you're given, value it. I think the previous firm I was a paralegal, and I had set the focus that, I'd applied for many training contracts, and I'd gone all the way up to, interviews with partners, sometimes assessment centers, and, I was not successful, and it really destroyed my confidence a lot of the time, because at the time I just wasn't what they were looking for. So they say. But at the end of the day, I think I was able to tailor my interest that I don't really care for commercial law. I like social justice. I like fighting discrimination. I like employment law. So I was particularly choosing firms that did well there. And I elevated every form of experience I had, even playing sports. I tried to show that I was a team player. So it's basically backing yourself in its entirety and having the evidence to back that. So when I was a paralegal, my previous firm, I headed the BAME network. Again, I wanted to show that if you choose me to be a trainee, this is what I would do for you. And the firm, actually, that department, the employment department, went redundant. So I left because I didn't want to be any other kind of solicitor, but an employment solicitor. And when I joined this firm, again, I set my intentions clear that this is what I want. And that's it. And I think so many people are paralegal in some places with a mindset of going elsewhere to become a trainee. But look where you are, I think, as we've discussed, training contracts are like gold dust nowadays. So look where you are. If it's a place you want to qualify, there's always places to go up. Training contracts are difficult to get, but NQ positions there are many law firms looking for kind of fresh meat to kind of train up. So that's my advice.
Thank you so much, Francis. That's brilliant. It's great to know that there's different routes to obtaining a training contract. I can definitely attest to that myself. But yeah, you showed how hard you worked and you were rewarded with a TC, so that's brilliant. And I just wanted to add to that as well, because I started off as a paralegal, and sometimes people can say that you can get stuck in that paralegal box. But actually, if you prove yourself and you show the people that you work with that you are of value and you set those intentions, it is absolutely possible, because you've got the industry experience, the lay of the land. So it absolutely is possible to achieve that. Thank you guys so much. So with BGLU, we do have members all over the world, all over coming from the diaspora. And we have a few of you here that are coming from different parts of the world. So I just wanted to quickly ask you, why the UK? I'll start with Fuad for this one, please.
So as I mentioned earlier, I did my undergraduate degree here. So I studied law in the UK. So I had somewhat of an understanding, a university understanding of the UK legal system. So naturally, I was always curious as to what practicing in the UK would be like. But I also wanted to go back home and qualify and practice there, because qualifying and practicing in Nigeria was something that was equally important to me. To be able to practice the same way that my parents had, to be able to go through that experience was something that was important to me. And I also think that deep down, I always kind of knew I wanted to practice in the UK, given everything I have just said. So when I came back for my master's, I figured this was a perfect opportunity to see what opportunities were available. So I started applying to firms, started applying to for different opportunities. But I'd say that, the UK system is somewhere I've always been curious about. I've always been curious as to what practice would be like. Now that I'm here, I see some of the differences between, because right now I'm in commercial litigation seats. So, and I practice litigation in Nigeria, and seeing some of the similarities, the parallels, and the differences as well. It's quite interesting to see. So, and I would also say that practicing in Nigeria it was something I was able to leverage on, in my applications, during my interviews, as to, how I could potentially add value to the firm and help the firm. Because at the end of the day, a training contract is an investment in you. So they want to know they're getting some value for their investment. So I was able to leverage on my Nigerian experience, because Nigerian and African experience. Africa is an important emerging market to a lot of law firms nowadays. So to answer your question, the UK was always somewhere I was naturally curious about practicing in. And when I had my opportunity to do so, I started applying and thankfully ended up at Hope and Logos.
Amazing. Thank you, Fuad. I'd like to pass this question on to Amaka. Amaka, I know you work at White & Case. You have a very big African focus. Could you let us know why the UK, please?
Sure. My answer is quite a short one. I studied law in the UK, so I already was familiar with the legal system. I was familiar with living in the UK. I'd also done some internships here, so also gained some experience of what life as a lawyer in the UK would be like. So staying in the UK for my career was more like a natural progression from my law degree. Also having family in the UK was a key factor, as that will help to integrate me into the society. Yeah, so that's why the UK, but because you've mentioned that White & Case has a key Africa focus, I guess I'll just touch on that as a why White & Case. Indeed, it's that Africa focus and also the international element to it. So we do a lot of cross-border deals, and there's also the guaranteed international secondment. So it's one firm, but then you get to experience the firm from different angles, different locations. So yeah, that should answer why the UK and also why White & Case.
Amazing, thank you. And Stephen, can I pass the question on to you now, please?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, guys. I am going to probably have to jump off after this one. I have got some work to do. But I think why the UK? I think the first thing is it's probably so I've always been quite an ambitious person, and I think when I was reading into potential options after university, I think the one thing that became quite evident to me quite quickly, and which is actually true, is that it's probably one of the best jurisdictions to train from as a junior lawyer, especially. I think maybe it might be the best jurisdiction to train from. It's like the Americans might argue otherwise, but I think what you'll see a lot of on a lot of our deals that are cross border is that a lot of the documents that we see, in whether that's in finance law and corporate law, they're all kind of English law governed, and so English law has it's a very robust system, and it's a system that is very old in its traditions, but also it's very well recognized worldwide, and ever evolving. So it's a great place to learn, and it's a great place to if you want to then go work anywhere else in the world after working for a few years in the UK. It's definitely possible. So I think that was the main thing for me, and I think it also just made sense. As I said, I studied my undergrad in South Africa, and South Africa it's a Roman Dutch English law kind of jurisdiction, and they take a lot of their inspiration legally, even to this day, from the English common law systems. So I think it just kind of made sense with my background, and having visited the UK once before, I really thought it was a place that I wanted to live and potentially work, and so yeah, that's why.
Thank you so much, Stephen. I know you have to jump off really quickly, though. I did want to ask you what it's like doing one of your seats in Dubai. I know that you're out there at the moment. How's that going?
Yeah, I mean, it's going great. Like, it's we're 3 hours ahead, so yeah, but it's been great. It's really warm. That's the one thing, but it's also been great seeing a different side of the firm, because our office, I mean, like a lot of the firms, our head office is in London, but our Dubai office is much, it's a much smaller practice, so it's kind of getting used to working in a much smaller environment in terms of the number of people. And it's a great experience from my perspective, because there is a lot that happens that I have to be directly responsible for, because the teams are so small here. So yeah, it's been a great experience. Dubai has been a great experience. I'd never been to the Middle East before this. And so, I mean, that's another thing that is a great selling point for a lot of training contracts. If anyone is, as some of you might be considering a training contract, there's a lot of firms that offer international secondments, and it's a great thing to do. And I'm in my fourth seat, so it's a great thing to do just before I qualify in September. Really nice to travel, and really nice to kind of experience something completely different, and experience a completely different, like, legal jurisdiction. The way they do things over here is different from what we might see. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. I don't know how I'm enjoying the heat, but like everything else has been great.
Oh, brilliant. No, thank you so much, Stephen, for taking the time out to speak to us and sharing your experience. And congratulations on your qualification, which is coming up shortly. Take care and have a lovely evening.
Thank you so much. And thanks for organizing to the BGLU. Thanks to all the other panelists. It was great hearing your experiences. And good luck to everyone who might be considering applying to a training contract, for a training contract. So I wish you all the best. And please feel free to reach out. I'm on LinkedIn, so if you have any questions, do shout.
Brilliant. Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah.
I will move on to our next question. How has your training contract experience been so far? And what has been your greatest achievement? I'll start with Francis first, please.
Greatest achievement. I will say that, I mean, my experience so far has been, it's been invaluable. It's been amazing. I think, learning, I guess, with very experienced people and kind of doing the day-to-day work is really good. And I think I'm lucky enough to have some clients of my own that I am supervised with, to kind of know firsthand what I will be doing, God willing, when I qualify. So I think so for that's been good. I guess the best part is just advising and your advice being right. And I think, for example, recently, I think in terms of wins, my greatest achievement, I mean, we recently won an employment law case in the tribunal, a very difficult case. It was on essentially an element of race. There was historical race discrimination. That wasn't an element of the claim, but I do think the historic, that background knowledge did sway the tribunal. It was against the Met Police, who are, well, those of us in the UK, we know that they have a particular reputation. And this was, with their own employee, which was a bit ridiculous. So we won basically a failure to make reasonable adjustments claim. And I assisted with compiling the medical evidence and drafting the witness statement, and which of course was reviewed and edited to an extent, but I did spend a long time on that statement. And that was the statement, like we say, kind of changed the sway of the tribunal. So that was amazing. In terms of my own cases, I instructed counsel at times, even as a paralegal, or draft instructions to counsel. But when it was your own case and kind of having a conference with counsel and kind of asking these experienced barristers, you're very inexperienced questions. It was interesting. So I instructed a KC, a King's Counsel, on the matter for what we call a substantive preliminary hearing. It's not the full hearing at the end of the day, so you don't really win the case at that point, but we absolutely destroyed the other side on that case, and I think it put us on a really, really good foot. And the client was absolutely elated. And I think that the King's Counsel, he said, this is one of those cases where you make a genuine difference to someone's lives. And so I think I still keep that with me. I'm still working the case. We've got a hearing at the end of this year. If it doesn't settle, we don't know. But I think for me, that's probably been one of my highlights so far. Oh, I lied. Sorry, another one. Because again of the scholarship that I told you about, I was featured in the Times newspaper.
Amazing.
That was
Yes,
amazing.
I saw that.
I just basically told my experience, and it's nice as well because we're quite a big team. It's about 10 of us now, but both my managing partners have been, and founding partners have been in the Times themselves on numerous occasions over their career. So it was nice, as a trainee, again, to show value and kind of hype to the firm that at a trainee level, she's been featured in the Times. So that was a really, really good highlight, I would say as well, actually.
Amazing. Well done, Francis. That's
Thank you very much.
fantastic. Amaka, I'll pass the question on to you.
Okay. My training contract experience has been a very interesting one. I'm currently in my 4th seat, so I've done seats in arbitration, M&A, project finance, and now I'm doing another project finance seat on secondment in Paris. I think key for me is that no 2 days are typically the same. You may come into the office with your own agenda, but you just find out that something else has to take precedence. So the unpredictability of a training contract also makes it very interesting. I also find that the firm invests in its trainees beyond the day-to-day work. So actually in your professional development. So for example, last year we were sponsored to go to the Black Council Forum, where we were able to learn from other experienced lawyers, grow our network. So just that experience also just makes the training contract experience more wholesome. In terms of my greatest achievement, I would say working on deals that have real-time impact in the communities that they relate to. So, for example, working on deals in Africa. So as much as I consider UK home, Nigeria and just Africa in general is home to me as well. So being able to work on deals and then see the real-time impact in the communities, for me, is my greatest achievement, is the key highlight of my training contract experience.
Amazing. Thank you, Amaka. And finally, Fuad.
So I would say my training contract experience has been interesting and very enjoyable so far. The team I'm currently sitting with and the firm in general is very supportive. There's a huge emphasis on asking questions here. In fact, whether you ask 200 questions rather than, assume or make any assumptions, whether you ask questions, and they're always very supportive. There's also a huge emphasis on pro bono work at my firm, which is something I genuinely like about the firm. So everybody has a set amount of hours of pro bono that they have to log each year. So it kind of mandates everybody to be involved in some pro bono work. And that kind of ties into my biggest achievement so far, is being involved in pro bono work that actually helped somebody, that made a difference in their lives. And another aspect of the team in my firm is that, they set up these partner trainee meetings where you just basically get to sit down and speak with different partners in my team, and it's pretty much up to you what you want those discussions to be about. You can ask for advice, You can ask for tips. I had one with a partner recently, and we're talking about football, and I asked her how to manage, to not let the work, affect your personal life too much. And she gave me some really good advice. I would say it's been a very good experience so far. I'm only in my first seat, and I'm really looking forward to what the other seats are going to be like. So yeah.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Fuad. I am conscious of the time, actually. It's been a great event. I'm really thrilled that we've been able to do this, but I'm going to have to skip through a couple of the questions. This was one question that I was really keen to know. What is something you wish you knew about being a trainee that you didn't know before you became one? I will pass that on to Amaka first, please.
Okay. I think that the training contract goes by quicker than you think. It's easy to think, oh, I've got 2 years ahead of me. You can come in with your own agenda, or you come in and your agenda gets swept away by the day-to-day of being a trainee solicitor. So just to be conscious of how quickly the time flies. And I think it's easy to focus on trying to do your best work, trying to get all your deliverables out in the best shape, trying to hit that NQ position, that you fail to recognize there are other things you can benefit from, like growing your network, integrating yourself into the firm, for example, by joining committees, getting involved in pro bono matters, attending conferences. There's just so much you can use your trainee position to gain. And if you're so focused on your deliverables, it's easy to miss out on that. So I would say I wish someone told me that the training contract goes by quickly. Of course, make sure you're getting out your best work, but also be intentional about having a very wholesome training contract experience.
Amazing. Thank you, Amaka. And Francis?
Yes, I think so. It's because of the nature of my training contract, and because I was a paralegal for 1 year, my training contract is 18 months. And because we're a small firm, there's no kind of strict seats per se, because we specialize. So I'm just doing a specialist training contract. And I think one thing I wish I knew, first of all, was that was an option. I was very happy to learn that was an option later on, and I did my research. But I think also, I guess the perception of others, the moment your role changes. So I was a paralegal, and when I would email clients, they would give me they would ask me basic administrative questions. The same client, the moment my title changed, would kind of ask me these hard hitting legal questions that I had no clue about. And, of course, a partner would be, or a supervisor, any solicitor would be able to, at the time, kind of respond quickly. But then there I was, like, contemplating, what is she talking about? But which is good, I think it puts you on your toes. So you kind of your reaction time must be quicker and kind of responding. So because they don't know how long you've been a trainee. You could be towards the end of your traineeship, you could be at the beginning. So their perception is that this is a trainee solicitor, she's going to qualify. So what does she think? And annoyingly, in the opposite way, when you're emailing, those that do kind of litigation, when you're emailing the other side, they're more forgiving if you have, a paralegal. But the moment you have a trainee,
Yeah,
they're a bit more harsher on you. And I think also they kind of, there's a kind of course, when a founding partner or a senior associate emails the other side, there is kind of, they kind of suss them up a bit to see, okay, what's their experience, all of these things. But if it's a trainee, sometimes they're like, oh, like they feel like they can deal with you differently. So you're there trying to showcase your legal knowledge, and you're kind of overlooked at because you are in a training position. So I've had to bolster my emails and come across as more robust than I normally would, just to show that take me seriously. because it's enough for your colleagues to do so, but to actually demand respect as well in the field, I think it was a challenge I did not anticipate. And I would say as a tip, because obviously I'm the only trainee in this firm, as other people in the panel, they have, I guess, a cohort of trainees to kind of fall back on in terms of creating a community. I would say try and create community outside of work in the legal field. Of course, this union is fantastic, and I've benefited so much by being a part of this, and also kind of attending other networking events as well. So that's what I would say.
Amazing, brilliant. And finally, Fuad, please.
Yes. So one thing I wish I knew sooner about being or becoming a trainee is that it's never too early to start getting familiar with law firms, exposing yourself to law firms. So open days, insight schemes, work experience, or, all these little things, events such as these, they go a long way in helping you, if not even on the contract, but just to understand what's out there, the opportunities that are out there. And, it's something I think about when I was doing my undergraduate degree, when I was in first year. I wasn't thinking about any of these things. That wasn't really my focus, but I would say that it's never too early to start getting these open days, insight schemes, work experience, VAC schemes, things like that. Anything, even those events that are held by organizations such as this and Legal Cheek. It's very common for graduate recruitment teams to send people to these events, to provide some insights and tips. It's also a good opportunity for you to network with them. So one thing I wish I knew is to start your journey to becoming a trainee and a lawyer as quickly as possible.
No, awesome. Thank you, Fuad. And I would like to add to that. I know we're running a bit out of time and we'll probably go a little bit over. I hope everybody doesn't mind. But I would say an advice that I would give, something I didn't know about being doing a training contract. I would say that having industry experience is really as pivotal as having really good grades. And, I think if you can prove to a firm that you understand the industry that you're going into, it can also be very, very valuable as well. And finally, my final question for our panel is, what is your advice for aspiring lawyers? And I'll throw that to Fuad first, please.
So I have a couple tips. The first of which is horizontal networking. What I mean by this is networking and, meeting and connecting with people on the same level as you. There's the temptation to only want to connect or network with people who you believe are higher than you and who you believe could potentially help you or have more experience than you. But horizontal networking is something that is very underrated. The people you meet today that are on the same level as you are the people that would, that will be in important positions in the future. So I would say that you shouldn't take horizontal networking for granted, be at school, be at these events, anywhere you are, take the opportunity to meet with and connect with, all sorts of people, not just people that you believe are ahead of you. And another tip I would say is that for anybody that is, a university or institution doing a master's or an undergraduate degree, just check to see if you have a careers services at your university or institution. A lot of universities will support you and will in things like preparing for interviews. I've heard of situations and I've even experienced situations where career services team at universities would conduct mock interviews, training contract interviews, and give you general tips, So I would say that, you should utilize such services I mean, you're paying the money, don't let your money waste. Like, take advantage of every single opportunity that you have at all of these institutions. So those would be my tips. And obviously,
Amazing.
I said earlier, it's never too early to start your journey to becoming a lawyer.
I 100% agree. Thank you, Fuad, for that. That's amazing. And Amaka, can I ask you the same question, please?
Yeah. I'd say in terms of putting in an application, you really need to know the firm, know what sets the firm apart from other firms, because it shows when you know the firm, and it also shows when you don't know the firm you're applying to. For example, when you just put the same application, a general application that applies to any firm. Also put in your applications early. I know firms may indicate that applications aren't reviewed on a rolling basis, and then they only contact you after the deadline, but it's still always a great idea to put in your application way before the deadline. I had like 2 different application cycles, and I saw that when I put my applications way ahead of the deadline, that's when I got callbacks, and when I put my applications towards the deadline, I didn't make it past the application stage. So just always make sure you put in your applications as early as you can. And finally, be part of a network. Platforms like these are very important for you to just kind of hear from other people and craft your own journey. Also, when you get to like interview stages, it's easier to tap into networks like these, because you'd have people that have walked this path already, and they can give you tips, tell you what to expect, help you to prep for interviews. Fuad mentioned that going to your careers service can help you with like training contract interviews, but also being part of a network, you then get to speak to people that have actually been to these interviews, and they can give you a more tailored experience. So definitely be part of a network.
Amazing. And finally, Francis, please.
Yes, I echo what the others have said. I think for me, I would say explore your interests early. If you have an idea as to what you want to go into law, I would say like research firms that are dedicated and tailor your experience to those firms. And I think, as Amaka said, mention that you like an area of law in your application. They like that because then it shows that if they do well in that area, and then they work in that area, you've been watching that their progress essentially, and they find that really interesting. And I think what's good is that if you have an interest in family, so I had an interest in family law, I did work experience in a family law firm, and I said I will never touch this area of law again. So if you are fortunate to kind of experience or find some form of work experience, even if they're not going to pay you, that was an unpaid one, even if it was just bundling, giving them coffee, if you're able to read their cases, it's good, valuable work experience. And I would say, values, in the same breath, I would say it's good if you figure out what you like at an early stage and go for it. You can always change sectors later. It's a bit more difficult, definitely, but if you really do have an interest, I think there's many solicitors that have been personal injury solicitors for like 10 years, and they had a career change into employment, and they found a very successful career there because the transferable skills are there. I would also say value small beginnings. As someone said, it's never too early to start your law career. I would also say it's never too late, and no one else's path is the same as yours. Not everyone's path is linear. I always tell people in university, your grades are fantastic, of course, but do other things in uni. Yes, you have a 2-1, so do other 500,000 other people. Join sports clubs, be a part of other events, not just the law society, that's excellent, but do other things that set you apart from other people, because unfortunately it is a lot of the time who you know. So if it's who you know most of the time, in the cases where it's not, they make them want to know you. Why are you different? And I think lastly, I think just as advice, as I mentioned, that it's never too late. I would just say kind of progress as much as you can and kind of forward thinking. I think the horizontal networking is an excellent advice, because you realize that you went to university with someone, and then years later, as was my experience, you find out that you're both in the same position, and then you network and find and express tips. And that kind of shows where you are, or I guess a path moving forward. And that's just not the case as an aspiring solicitor. But when you do qualify, someone said that, in law, it's like you grow up with the people that you're going to work with 20 years from now. So you'll be able to say that, I was a trainee at the time, she was a trainee 15 years ago. I trust her, here's a referral, I will working with her. Every connection is a valuable connection, is what I would say. And apply for the DAS scheme, please do. I think it doesn't get enough credit at all. People don't apply because people don't know. You never know that it's an opportunity that can change your life.
That's awesome. Thank you, Francis, and thank you for that DAS plug. That's brilliant. I really appreciate that. So we're wrapping up now. We've had a few questions come in from our audience. I know that time is running out, but if people could stay on just a few more minutes whilst we just ask these questions. So this question is for Amaka. Please, she said, so we've got a question asking Amaka, please, do you think the process of getting a training contract has changed over time from what was obtainable in your set?
Well,
I guess,
think
yeah.
the process is still largely the same. I'm not sure if this person is asking for White and Case specifically, or the training contract application generally. But for White and Case, I don't think the process has changed since when I applied in terms of video interview, telephone and all that, but I can double check to confirm. I would say maybe when I applied, grades were very important, but now it's more beyond grades, and it's very much about you selling yourself, you letting the firm know why they should invest in you. So bringing in all the experience you have, extracurricular activities you did in uni, other internships that you've done, people you've spoken to at the firm, careers events you've attended, name dropping, people you've spoken to within the firm. I think just in general, applications for training contracts, yeah, that's just what I'll say.
All right, amazing. And final question that we have is from Khadija. She's asking, so a few tests were mentioned, such as the Watson Glaser. Did any of you take a particular route to prepare for said exams? I might pass that one to Fuad, if possible, please.
So I just basically I found some test questions online, and I kept answering all the different examples or tests or similar questions I could find online, and they proved really helpful. It shows you how to approach the Watson Glaser questions, because they're not regular questions. It requires you to think and really look at the question. So I would say just practice and practice and practice. Look online. There are lots of resources that help out with that, and a lot of them are free. Some of them you have to pay for, but most ones I used were free and they were really helpful. So just check online, Google search Watson Glaser tests, examples, or along those lines, and you definitely find a lot of resources that would help.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Fuad. I think that's it now. We're going to wrap up. And I just want to say a big thank you to all our panelists for their valuable insights and contributions today. It's been a really enlightening discussion. Thank you for taking the time out on this exceptionally uncharacteristically hot day in the UK. I'm very, very, very grateful. Before we conclude, I'd like to remind everyone on how to contact us. As mentioned by the panelists, joining those groups, joining those networking unions, really, really important. We've got British-Nigerian lawyers Frederick Forum, sorry, I do apologize. And then we've got the British-Ghanaian Lawyers Union. I've put our details up on the screen and you can contact us there. I'm on LinkedIn, all our panelists are on LinkedIn. So if you do have any further questions, please do reach out to us. Thank you all so much for attending, and I can say that we can conclude now. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
And thank you, Shanine, as well, for hosting this wonderful event. Take care.
Take care, guys. Thank you.